Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm glad you could be here. I'm doing a review today for The Wastelands by Stephen King. It's book 3 in the Dark Tower series. And if you're not familiar with the Dark Tower, it is a series of 8 books set in a sprawling fantasy world, and not just fantasy, it kind of bridges off into other subgenres of speculative fiction as well. So I'll get to that in a few minutes, but just know this is a super popular book series by Stephen King, and I really hope that you check the series out if you haven't. I'm doing my best in this video to avoid spoilers, but I can't guarantee there will be no spoilers. So if you haven't read the series, you might want to tune out now until you get a chance to actually read the series up to this point. But I do highly recommend that you read it. Okay, so with that being said, make sure you stay till the end of the video. I'm going to talk about a couple of other things. So let's get right to this book review. The Wastelands is probably my favorite book of the series so far. It just keeps getting better. The Gunslinger was a really tough read for me. I enjoyed it. It made sense at the end, but it was a really slow going read. The Drawing of the Three was, of course, a much better book, but it took a while to gain its momentum for me. But The Wastelands really picked up right from the beginning, and it follows Roland and his band of misfits in a very strange world. And if you read the first 2 books in the Dark Tower series, and if you read the series as a whole, you know what I'm talking about. This is where the series really starts bridging other genres. It's not just fantasy. It has dystopian elements. It has science fiction elements. There is plenty of technology to be had in this story. Technology that Roland, the gunslinger himself, has no idea and is not familiar with at all. And yet his companions know a little bit of some of the technology, Eddie probably more so. And it's just a really fun and exciting ride, sometimes extremely strange in parts where, and you know, it's Stephen King. You got to expect some weird and strange elements, right? But it's set shortly after book 2 ends. And it continues on the travels with Roland and Eddie and Susanna as they traverse this world that they've kind of been stuck in. So the Dark Tower series really kicks into gear with the world hopping in this particular book. So I just had a thoroughly enjoyable ride. The humor is really spot on, especially when it comes to the other 2 characters and their knowledge of their world versus Roland's knowledge of his world, and trying to bridge that gap with what he doesn't know and what they don't know. It just makes for some really comical moments in my mind. But they are going along, and eventually they find out that someone very important needs to be rescued from another world that is very similar to our world, and the very first task in the book is having to go and rescue this person and bring this person into the fold. And if you've read the first book, you probably know who this person is that I'm referring to. So you know, if you've read anything in the series, it's going to become extremely apparent very early on what is probably going to happen And when it happens, it is just really, really satisfying, really intense, action-packed, and the world building is just really something else in this book. So, the first two books were good, but Stephen King really cranked it up a notch with the Wastelands. And it becomes clear really early on that Stephen King is now planning to have a whole bunch of other books in his series at the point that he wrote this book, because there is a huge cliffhanger at the end. You do get an ending. It's an okay ending, but it definitely leaves you wanting more, and so it's not super satisfying because you're like, okay, now what happens? And you have to read the fourth book now, right? So, really, really good. The character development was absolutely amazing. I thought that the character interactions, the arguments, the heartfelt moments, the just heart-wrenching, gut-wrenching moments were so in your face and really, really well thought out in terms of how it resembles characters that you would expect to meet on an everyday basis. And I think that's what really draws me into the book, and I know a lot of you, it draws you into the book with good characters like that, because the characters are really what does it for me. I'm a very character-driven person, and so if I am reading a book that has really, really good characters, I am totally satisfied and engaged in the book. And they're not just, oh, by the way, characters either. Every character has a unique and special function in the story. Their own unique viewpoints and their own unique gifts and talents that they bring to the story that makes them crucial to how the story wraps up. And there's so many different locations in this book that they encounter. You've got one that looks like just this barren opening scene with trees and grass and everything, and certain things they encounter, but they're pretty much alone, to being in a whole other part of the world that they're traveling in, where they're surrounded by all these groups of people that have been wasting away in this completely dystopian setting, and all of a sudden they're having to fight for their lives to survive these people who are just completely foreign and barbaric. And the things that Roland and his group have to go through to survive it is just heart-wrenching at times. And it has you on the edge of your seat, and you're going, okay, now what's going to happen? And are they going to survive this? And there's a lot of mystery as well, because they're trying to find out how they're going to get out of the Wastelands. And there's this one option that seems to be their only viable option, but it's going to put them in great danger to take advantage of this option that will give them a clean break from the Wastelands. And it's not what you think. It's just completely different. There's this, it's almost like a deus ex machina type of thing. There's this ghost in the machine that is controlling everything in this dystopian world. And you find out that it's left over from a bygone era where technology reigned, and it's just a weird mishmash of all kinds of different genres. And I have a feeling there's just so much more of that to come as we follow Roland and his crew in future books. I could be wrong. I'm excited to read book 4, but I just have this feeling that there's going to be even more of a mashup of genres as we go through this. So if you read The Wastelands, let me know what you think in the comments, what your thoughts were about it. Maybe it wasn't your favorite book. Let me know in the comments why did you think that, or tell me some of the things that really stuck out to you about The Wastelands that just made you want to keep reading more, and or maybe you have given up on the Dark Tower series at this point. Everybody has different perspectives and comes from different ideas of what makes a good story, so I'd love to hear your take on it. And one thing that was really interesting to me was how Stephen King plays with the timeline. In some sense, you have to really suspend disbelief because, the things we always hear in books and TV shows and stuff about why you should never mess with the timeline. I mean, Doctor Who is a good example, right? There are things that Stephen King does in these books that you would think, why does that not totally screw everything up? And in a way it does, I'm sure, and we just haven't seen it so far in the series, and maybe those repercussions will come later. But I've found myself reading some of the things in this book and I'm like, okay, well, what kind of effect is that going to have? And if it doesn't have an effect, why is it not having an effect on the timeline? So you kind of have to suspend a little disbelief, and that's okay. It's fantasy, right? So you can enjoy it despite any scientific discrepancies that there might be. So I don't know. Those are just my thoughts. Maybe that will all get resolved in the future books and they'll fix the timeline somehow, or maybe they won't. I don't know. But it's a really fun book and I highly recommend you guys read it. Make sure you do check out the Dark Tower series if you've not yet. It's a really fun ride, especially if you like Stephen King. There's no reason why you would not want to read the Dark Tower. Now, I'm sure not all Stephen King books are for everybody, and that's fine, but my general thought is if you like Stephen King, you'll probably like the Dark Tower. And if you don't like Stephen King, you might not like the Dark Tower, but then again, you might. So, take that for what it will. That's my review of The Wastelands by Stephen King, and I know it was kind of all over the place, but I kind of am all over the place sometimes. And so that's that. I am making really good progress with my reading goals. I recently finished Dawn Shard and I've started Rhythm of War. I'm probably going to combine those reviews because they do kind of go hand in hand. So once I've finished Rhythm of War, I'll do a review for both Dawn Shard and Rhythm of War in one video, and then I'll be moving on to the First Law trilogy. So everything's coming along just fine. Surprisingly, I've been sticking to my goals, and that is a good thing. I do have a couple of other fun videos planned as we near the end of 2020, so make sure you stay tuned, and make sure that you check out all this stuff here so that you can help support my channel, and let other people know about this channel that you found. If you like my channel, make sure to let other people know about it too. Check the description below, of course, because there's always stuff in the description below that I've got posted to share with you there. And make sure to support me on Patreon if you want to support what I do here. I'll leave the link in the description below, and hopefully I'll see you on the Patreon side. And with that being said, guys, make sure that you're reading more books. I really enjoyed talking with you today, and you guys have a great weekend. All right? Talk to you soon. Bye.